great to be among so many accomplished women. Hello. So that's Meghna. Meghna, you're a writer and a director. And you already said that a story needs to arrest you, totally take you in. And the other parts of filmmaking, like your cast, your commerciality, all of that comes later on. So what is it about a story that really takes you? And this is a question to all of you, actually.
I think it's the central core of the story, whatever that may be. I'll go back to my last two films. With Talwar, I think it was the duplicity of one particular case where you had two victims, but you had two sets of theories, two sets of murderers, two sets of murder weapons. So the central core of the story is what grabbed me actually. Yeah. With Razi, it was this inimitable strength of this girl who at the blink of an eye, agreed to this decision to just put her whole life at stake and never second guessed herself or her decision going forward. It's the core of the story that grabs me. It has to have that immense strength to hold me, and that's the only thing that will make me capable of taking it forward or doing a good job at it, actually. If that doesn't grab me, that starting point doesn't grab me, I'm not sure how good I will be at taking it forward or executing it.
Right. Yeah, what she said, the core of the story, and for me another thing is also the purpose towards why I'm writing, why this particular story makes sense. What is the bigger reason for this film to be made, for people to come and hear me, for people to agree with a certain point of view that I have on that subject. So what is the bigger purpose? Like, for example, in October, it's unconditional love. Now, everything else is around that, but what is my take, my thoughts, my ideology on that word unconditional? That forms the crux. And then everything else is weaved around that. So the bigger purpose is that in Piku, of course the relationship of father-daughter and everything else, but it's also a comment on the times that we are living in. Where joint families are not there anymore, where your parents and sadly if there's just one left, then what happens, how the equations change, how the daughter becomes the mother of the house. But again, it's a comment on the times we are living in. And everything else, whether it's constipation, whether it's a desire to break away from the family or whatever else, is part of that. Yes.
What about you? When you hear the story, you create visual magic. So when you hear the story first, do you automatically start looking at it before?
Yes, I guess that's what happens when you're hearing a story, because it's like listening to any other story. You listen to a fairy tale, you listen to a folklore, you listen to any event a certain person is telling you. You start visualizing or imagining the situation automatically on your head. And that is what happens, I guess, when we hear a narrative or a script being said to us. You kind of start imagining, okay, so I'm seeing the characters function in a certain scenario, in a certain mise-en-scene, and it comes automatically. I think it's like this is organic thing of humans have of listening to a story. You build the world in your mind or visually the moment you start hearing it. I think that is what happens, and then slowly you start trying to put that imagination which you are seeing in your head to people outside, those who can see your imagination coming up on screen. I think it's more than anything else. But yeah, the process is very organic. When you hear a story, when you listen to one, you almost know what you're looking at. You almost can see the whole spectrum.
For me, actually, I've worked in films in which, the characters are set in sort of morally grey spaces. And I find that fascinating, actually. I find it fascinating when people who are up against a wall make decisions that, change their lives or spoil them or make them better, whatever the case may be. So it's mostly for me been that, people find themselves in sticky situations and what are they going to do and where do they get the strength to keep going. Yeah.
So I am a little different in the sense that I'm a purveyor of words, not images. But the story idea, the story remains the same. For me, I have a passion for the past. History is my playground. So that's where I look for my stories. And the other thing is, how is history, how is it about me or all of us today? That's the point. Not just as a kind of curiosity,
But how has it made all of us?
How is it relevant for all? How is it relevant to all of us?
Exactly. And how is it going to make our future, if at all?
Right, right. So, all of you here have explored a variety of subjects through stories and movies. But when a subject is very close to your heart, like of real people, of us, stems from society, one of us, or all of us, is the attachment more? And is the process different? You want to start, Juhi?
See, no matter how much you try, you will be part of the process emotionally. You will be writing it at some level, your perspective on it. Because you are a sum total of the experiences that you have. So all your ideas or immediate references will perhaps come from the life that you've lived, the people that you've met, the places you've gone to. But you can't just, just type down everything what you've lived. There has to be something from that makes sense. Life when it was happening like that as an experience and on hindsight, in retrospect. So the retrospect is very important. That helps you build a reason to write that film. It is, of course, from your experiences, but there is a slight emotional distance that you have to maintain. You have to maintain. But while I'm thinking about the characters, while I'm thinking about where they belong, how they are, it's a very personal, journey along with the characters. You have to become them. For me, I have to become them. I cannot write as third person. I become Harshor, I become Piku, I become Dan, I become Shuli. And then what comes out is a lot more organic. But then when I'm reading, as a writer. That time I'm not any of the characters, and it's multiple existence in a lot of ways. In one day you live a lot of lives, but it is fascinating also. I really enjoy that.
Even for you, Razi was based on a real story, and Talwar was so much of Talwar in the public domain. So you were so much closer to the real subject, pretty much, right? So how was your process?
Unfortunately for me, I can't put the personal into the films that I make, otherwise I'll be in real serious trouble. But I think if it's not personal, it's a projection. You do eventually have to become the character, like Juhi said, because otherwise you're not going to find your depth, even while writing, neither while executing. And for a director, on set, your cues are very, very physical and visual. So you sometimes have to even adopt the body language of a man when you're cueing a male actor, right? You need to start thinking like a man if you're a woman, and if you're a male director, you need to do it vice versa. I think the only difference between, for me at least, when I was making fictional films as opposed to now true life, is that there is a tremendous sense of responsibility now that sits on your shoulders, because the authenticity factor is at a premium. And there is no way you can compromise on it. So that responsibility actually makes me work harder, makes the team work harder, and I think that somewhere impacts and benefits the film in the longer run.
Thank you.
For me, it will be slightly different, because when I'm shooting, say, a fiction, then the process of connecting in that way with an actor is
The subject is different.
The subject is different, and you cannot really connect while you're doing a visual process. Like when you're writing or you're directing, it's much more an organic process where you're into the character. You're naturally more involved. When I'm shooting it, I'm somewhat of a spectator all the time.
The eyes of the story.
I'm eyes of the story. But that kind of reverses if I'm shooting a documentary. Because then I'll have to really connect with the characters and have to really make them comfortable. For them, I should be invisible. So that only can happen when I'm mixed up with them so much that they ignore my presence.
Right.
So I think it can only work in a documentary scenario, but when I'm doing fiction, that part is not really as much as a writer or a director would be involved in.
So the documentary attachment is far more to the subject.
Yes, it will have to be attached to the part more. It will have to be attached in such a way you are become like the furniture in the house. You don't exist in that place anymore. Because the moment you do, they start not being natural anymore, which are obviously that's the crux of a documentary, that you have to capture the natural essence of it. But if they know that you're there and they know the camera is pointed at you, you might not get it. So you have to be not there at all physically. You just have to be like, this is like the fly in the wall concept of things. You just have to be like a fly in the wall which nobody really notices.
Okay, so if your question is, I think this duality that Juhi was talking about, which is that on some level you try to understand the character, sometimes you find that you can't quite agree with them, at least in a lot of the movies that I've made. You can't quite, but you're fascinated. You wonder why this person does what they do. And on the other hand, I think that you have to approach all of them with love. I don't see that there is any other way that you can actually do your job if you're not going to approach them with a certain amount of love being a big, sort of biggish word. But what I mean is a certain, you are invested in them in some way. Yeah.
So again, a little different for me. I'm a writer, so the characters live in my head all the time. I write a series of books called Purnaki, based on modern India. So it's a series is going on, and the first one is being made into a movie, which is why I think I'm here. So, but they are in my head. They are both part of me. They are my friends. I'm growing with them. I'm living with them. It's like living with a few people in my own house for the past 5-6 years. So I think for me, sometimes perhaps separating the personal from what the story demands. There's a bit of a grey area over there. I'm sure there's a lot of me in my books. And somebody else would be able to tell me better. Perhaps I need a bit of psychoanalysis for that. But yes, I think there's a much closer connection between the writer and the characters, because you don't see them otherwise. All of you see your creations in front of you. I don't.
Right.
I just read about it when I read my books again.
Interesting. So, like you just said, Juhi, that you become a writer, you're writing and all of this book, but how you feel close to the character. But does it often happen that once the film is over, how do you detach yourself? I mean, it's interesting to be a character, but also sometimes scary because you say, well, living at home with those people, getting about it.
It is definitely tough, and the toughest for me was detaching myself from Bhaskar and Piku and Rana, because like she said, they start living around you, and also because of the journey you have with them as a person, what I was before I wrote Piku and what I became after that, the contribution that Bhaskar gave to my life, the contribution that Piku made in my life, it'd be very frivolous to say, oh, they were just the characters in a film that got made, which was shown, and it's now in some or some OTT platform. Because, like for example, that marriage should have a purpose. I didn't think of it before Piku, and not in my conscious mind, I was aware that I'm going to write this. Bhaskar got it out from inside me. So somewhere, you do let go of your existence, and you allow your characters to just dig out such deepest notions from inside you. Yeah, they do take over you. Yeah. And they do bring out certain aspects which you didn't know existed. That marriage should have purpose. Yeah, it should have, but I don't think I thought about it as much as I thought about it after I wrote it. Then what did I just write? And those surprises, and that quality, that dominance that characters have on you, those people have. I wouldn't want to call them characters also. Actually, they're people. They're people. So how do you just leave them? That I don't know them anymore. In fact, I know them forever now. If you want to, sometimes you're stuck in a situation. I do go back and think, what would Bhaskar say? So they do become my guide or help me get out of the situation.
So all of these characters you write are part of your conscience of where you are.
Yes. So yeah, they do, and yeah, at just work level, perhaps it's easy. I won't say easy, but actors do move on quickly because they have something else lined up. Maybe directors are getting quickly involved in some other movie, but for writing, the time it takes to come to that point, and then cleanse yourself, and then restart all over again. It's a long process, and you have to prepare yourself that, okay, I'm going to dive into this next and as much as last time. So that little preparation, that's why there's a gap. There should be a respectable gap between, you know, falling in love all over again with a new set of people. Yeah.
I actually go through cycles of attachment and detachment with my world, with the characters. I think that's part of the process because I'm a part of the writing process as well. So at that time the attachment is peaking and then you're in the filming process, and so everything that you have actually imagined and put down on paper with your co-writers is now breathing life on its own. So it's an extremely fulfilling process. Once you have your footage and you're on the editing table, which is also a process, and you would know about this as well, Pooja, that you need to get detached because then you have to look at your footage very objectively.
It's very hard because you know getting attached comes naturally to them.
I think it's become easier, it's become over time, it's become easier. I am not emotional about my footage at all. At all. So then I'm totally assessing and I will use words like this is cut it. Yeah, so there is that process of detachment that happens. Then when the film gets put together and you have to begin your other post-processes of sound and music, then your underlying emotions. So again, the emotional attachment comes back. So for me, it goes through cycles. Yes, actually. Yeah, I think the final bidai is when the film goes from me to the audiences in the theatre is when I say my final farewell. That then I'm attached to the experience and the memories of the film. Yeah.
I think that DOPs need to get detached much faster because we don't have the time to. Yeah, because DPs usually finish up the shoot and they're hurrying for the next pre-production of the next shoot and going to the other. So I think no, we don't have the cleansing time. So I think we treat it like oh मेरा family उधर पे रह गया है अभी अगले वाले के पास जाना है. I think it's more of that. We are very fast movers in that way. We are not attached to people, you know. But yeah, but obviously when you're shooting, you have slowly that connect to a certain character because you see the personalities getting built on screen slowly and gradually as we shoot. And the whole process takes time. But honestly, we cannot afford to have the time to be hung up on what we're shooting. And we have to be moving very fast to the next one. Because the next is already waiting for me to start from scratch for them. And if I bring that hangover of the previous shoot, I cannot work in the next one. So I think DPs have to be heartless in a way of that sort. And they really, really cannot afford to be attached for too long. Obviously you get depressed about the shoot and the memories of it and how things of it. But little more attachment emotionally than that, I think it's not actually possible for us. Yeah, it's just not, you cannot afford to do that. If I think of a certain character back then, that might influence how I'm going to shoot the next actor. Maybe I'm shooting 2 films back to back, which has a character which is close by to each other, which I shot previously, and the next one. We might have some shades together. If I don't get out of the previous attachment, I won't be able to see this new character in a certain new light.
Correct, yeah.
So I might be like just, taking a hangover of that or extension of that and projecting the same character in a certain way, which shouldn't happen, what I believe. So it's better you get out of the zone ASAP and see your new film and new script and new characters in a different light completely.
Pooja, you have 2 different levels of attachment, as a writer and editor.
Yes, exactly what Meghna was saying. I think that when we're writing, we're sort of, yes, you get attached to, you wonder what this character will do and so on. Then you go into shoot and, these ideas that are on paper are interpreted by different people, so many different actors, cinematographers, and finally it's on the edit table and now you're looking at it again and saying, Acha, is it me socha tha? Yeah, it's much better than jo socha tha sometimes, happy times. But so it's, yes, I think it's attached, go away for a bit, come back again. And then again, at the time of post, yes, I agree, or when you're putting the music, when you're putting the sound is when you're finally rewriting the film. I think that the film gets written on paper and then it gets written on shoot and then it gets written on the editing table. So it's the same sort of writer attachment detachment that keeps going on. Yeah.
Sumedha. To me, of course, the attachment is complete. Letting go of my characters would be like a death in the family. So I'm not planning to let go of them.
Any of them.
But then I'm writing a series, so
Right.
I don't have to let go. But you know, for me, attachment is important in a different way. I have to let go when the director, the one who's going to make the movie, is going to make the movie with her own vision and in her own way. So that is something which is scaring me. Because I have an idea about what I wrote, which is a very strong one,
Right.
and obviously it's being made by Ruchi Narayan. So she has her own ideas. We are
Right.
in conversation and in discussion, but it will be the image which will be important for the movie naturally.
Right.
I accept that. But that's going to be a tough one for me.
I mean, so for
It's an organic process, I think. Best of luck with that. I mean, I'm sure you'll be good, but
Because I am a little scared about that because you know, writing the image that the words convey would be different for me and different
Right,
for
right.
Ruchi. Will the two be the same? Will I be able to live with that?
yeah. So how much creative control do you think you will have? Because the first time you're sharing your work in that sense with somebody else.
Well, before I signed the contract, we had a long discussion on this. I wanted to say that if I don't like it, don't do it. She said it's not possible. This is not your medium. Your medium is words. So the last word on the creative concepts cannot be yours. So I agree with the logic of that. Because I am a writer, I am not a filmmaker. So naturally it will be the filmmaker. But
Right.
like I said, it's going to be a very difficult thing.
Different journey for you guys.
And I'm a little scared about it.
So you've said that you're scared 3 times. So may I just tell you, please don't be scared. Because having just made a film on a book, I can completely understand where you're coming from. And also my father is an author, and I know, you know, the premium of a writer's words are sacred. But like Pooja said, it's not only the director. There will be the cinematographer, there will be the production designer, there will be the costume designer, there will be the actors. They will all have their own interpretation, and please look at it as a painting where there will be different people adding different shades to it, and all that will emerge is one beautiful picture at the end.
Thank you.
bravo, that's lovely.
Supposedly you're a co-writer with somebody. How is the process when sharing a creative space with somebody else? It could be interesting, fascinating. At the same time, is it also conflicting?
Actually, I've never co-written, so, and I don't think I can. No, I can't. For me, the first draft of the film is absolutely, it has to be mine. I cannot write anybody's thoughts, ideas. For me, it has to be written in complete isolation. And when that is ready, it's only after that can, and also I've just worked with Shujit. So, I mean, I know roughly, we do have a conversation. He knows what I'm writing towards, but exactly what I'm going to write, he has absolutely no idea. And I like it that way because then he gets a surprise, the director gets a surprise what I've come up with that basic crux of the thought. And then there's a lot of material to discuss and go back and forth on something. And first draft, I feel, is the purest version of that idea. And then everything else builds on that. You remove from it, you add to it. But for me as a writer, I need to know that subject completely by myself first. I'm extremely thorough, completely thorough. Everything, every character, every detail, every nook and corner of that person's existence, everything has to be known to me. Only then I can surrender or let it go. It has to be. It has to come from inside me first, completely. But it's important to listen to what the other person's vision is. So for me, what helps is if I'm in agreement to that vision, then it's like, okay, we know we are on the same page. Now I'll disappear and write. That's important for the director, so that after 7, 8 months, 9 months, when I appear, resurface, it's not like a shock. It's a surprise. It's a pleasant surprise. That where the journey happened. You know how that vision was sort of achieved in writing. But that duration has to be completely alone.
But you must start on the same page.
Yeah, of course. That you know that, okay, this is the story idea we are trying to deal with. And you know the basic 1 or 2 characters. But the world around that comes on an everyday basis, everyday journey. And it can't happen that just because there are 2 people in the room, so every day we have to write. alone also. There are days together when there's nothing on paper. Now, how do you explain that if when you're writing together, because I've not done that, so I don't know, maybe there is a process to that as well, that you have to meet and then you have to write, because you're meeting to write. So it becomes there is a...
to do together.
Yeah. But if you're doing it all by yourself, you can lie down in the process, you'll cry in the process, you'll not eat it in the process, you might not take bath in the process for 2 days, 3 days, whatever it is. You're just living it all by yourself. For me, that is extremely important.
I love collaborative writing. I do. I find it extremely energizing. I find it much faster. I think I alone am a very, very lazy writer. You keep waiting for that one start to come to you, which never comes when I'm writing alone. So for me, it's very exhilarating when I'm sitting with my co-writers and we just talk. And somehow for the last 3 or 4 films, our basic story has already been laid out because it's a true life incident. So we're just sitting and talking कि अच्छा अगर वो ऐसे करे तो अगर उसने ऐसा बोला हो तो, so that verbal jamming, when that becomes words, we don't know. But that's just how it happens, and I really love that process. And then what we do is that once the first person will take a stab at it, take a start, pass it to the second, and then it will come to me. Then I will circulate. So it keeps growing with every round that it takes, whether it's a scene, whether it's sequences. So I love that process.
So what's the creative conflict?
Well, not conflict. There could be another point of view. Let me put it that way. And if it is adding to the story, the script, the character, or the film, and it's making it better, we all just agree. Unless it's a complete departure from what, say, we've been thinking about for a majority of the time, then we kind of take a vote on it. It's a democratic process. I mean, I thankfully I've never had an opportunity where I have had to pull rank and say no, but I'm the director and this is how it needs to be done. No.
I completely agree. I've worked in a collaborative space. I wrote my first film or a version of it all by myself. And I remember when Sri Ram saw it, Ek Hasina Thi, he said, "This is not a screenplay; it's a novella." And so it was, for me, it was a learning curve that I think is still going on. But like she said, I love collaborative. I think there's a lot of jamming. There's a lot of ideas bandied about back and forth. Some days you are amazed at what another person might come up with, but it is it's all in good faith. It's all in the film is bigger than all of us, really. So it's just about coming to, and then you go back home after you had your chats and everything and try and put it down on paper and then you share. So that's how it's been. That's how my last few films that I've written have been. Yeah.
A lot of people say, Sumedha, that writing, for all writers here, that writing is a lonely process. Would you all agree because you write?
Absolutely, and I think I am in Juhi's camp over here. Because when I write, I take about 6 to 8 months to write the basic book, and then I am cut off outside the entire universe. And then one just immerses oneself in that space and writes. So for me, it's really difficult to understand how someone else would be in that space. Because it is a very lonely and a space which is cut off from normal life, from other people, from everything else. So, and I have not tried collaborative writing yet. Maybe there's something to it. Maybe other people can add something which is not there in me. At the moment, I think I'm like, I want to cut myself off from everything and write a book in 6 to 8 months. And then after that, it goes through a few other processes. But it is extremely lonely, and filmmakers get a lot of interaction with their audiences, especially the way things are right now. Authors do not really get much interaction with their audiences, but social media helps us a bit. But in the end, you're right, it is an extremely lonely thing. I live in Geneva, Switzerland, and write about India. And believe me, it is lonely. I can imagine.
So we need to add to that.
More than lonely, actually.
Filmmaking is different because you all have a team, right? So you have to interact with people.
Correct. So, so as a writer, I don't have a team. I do it all by myself. I enjoy that process. Okay, I would not do anything to change it. It's an escape. It's dual existence in a lot of ways, because when I say I disappear, I don't disappear physically from the space that I'm living in. The house has to run, things have to be done, your responsibilities, whatever else you do in your normal routine life. Within that little escape for me is my space, and that's the world that I'm trying to leave. And few nights. You just want to be in it, especially when you're in deep, like initial part of the writing phase, it's not so much, but once you've sort of done in a script, if you say around 30 pages or 35 pages, when you've gone past that much, then you know you're really deep into something, and that again, it's very addictive then you want to keep going back. And then there are times when you are completely, you can't even look at the work that you've written. So for days together, it's all shut. So there's a relationship going on with you and your laptop. It's kept there on the table. It's scaring you. Should I open it? Should I not? Should I go back again? What if I don't like anything? So it's a fun thing also, actually. Yeah, it does cause a lot of sometimes bit of disturbance, in the sense that you have to write and you've not written and you're living in that. Yeah, I have to write, because then you're not able to enjoy anything. You're not at any moment completely, because back of the mind is that guilt is playing that I have to. But it's still, it gives me a lot of high to be in that space alone by myself, and then have something which I did not know could come out of me. So so it's also a revelation of your own self, and I do it not that I'm writing a film. For me, it's just that this time, let's see what comes out. Yeah, it happens to be a film. It happens to be something that everybody is going to watch. But this is something that I was working already. I was getting my salary already. I was already easily in advertising and living that kind of interaction and everything else. But I did let go of all of that because I enjoy this single relationship. I find it more fulfilling.
What is your process of collaboration with a director and a writer? You sit with them and go scene by scene and tell them how you vision the scene, how you vision the movie.
No, not really. It's the opposite way around, I guess. For my process, what I do, as I said before, that when you're listening to a story, when you're listening to a script, you already imagine something in your head, right? But then the process comes of what the director is seeing in their mind. So I try to understand what the director and the writer has thought while they were writing, because obviously they have tried to put in a certain world in papers which was there in their mind. And I need to see that also. So if I cannot see the same image or the same world that these two are seeing, I cannot project it. So I need to understand the world that is there in their head already, and then add my own colors to it maybe. Because that is where I come in. I'm just not a technician. I am also collaborating with them in a sense. So if I need to collaborate, it has to be a two-way process where they have to tell me what is there in their mind. They have to show me their world to me. They have to make me understand what is the place, the vis-a-vis, the colors, the day and night, or whatever it is. And then I can only help them project it on screen. So I need to know. And I think that is where it becomes very collaborative, because then I don't only take and create it. Because then I become an animator, which I'm definitely not. So what I then try to do is add my own colors. So they see Shimla mein ek purana ghar which is blue in color. I said blue acha nahi lag raha. I think it should be like dusk, and the house should be brown. And the character should come from this corridor, which I really like. So that is how we kind of start creating a world slowly and gradually.
I know dimensions over they already have created.
Yes. So then the moment you start creating that dimensions of things, of how the people are, how they look, how they talk, how they walk, and how I'm seeing them function in a certain space and time, I think that is when the audience will also start to feel the images or feel the movie. It's not about just seeing, right? We're working with a medium which is working on so many of your senses at the same time. So it's just not about that. You have to see the image, they have to see a certain image and feel it.
Yeah.
No, it's not connect. It's you have to feel, you have to smell the earth. You have to smell the earth, you have to feel the fear, you have to understand the love, you should cry, you should feel it with every pore of your body. It's just not visual. You're being added on with all the other elements of filmmaking. There's the sound and there's sound design and there's edit and all of that, which is adding on to it. But all of this needs to collaborate and form into an image which makes you feel the image more than anything else. It's not just about understanding or reacting to the characters. If I see this run of Kutch and somebody running through it, I need to feel the heat. When I see it, I need to feel the heat. I need to feel the breathlessness of that person. I need to smell that dust. If I'm not being able to do that, then it means I have not been able to create that world in all its propriety. It should happen because film is such a media that has so many elements coming towards it. It's just not for me to react. Obviously, I will react. That is the whole process, to have a reaction from the audience, be it good or bad. You might agree to what we are showing, you might not agree to what we are showing. Fair enough. But you need to feel it. If you don't feel it, you can never give a reaction. To evoke a reaction, you have to feel it. You either hate it or you love it. If you're apathetic towards a film, that means nothing has happened really. Like, yeah, you don't care. You just sat through 3 hours of nothing. You have wasted your time. But even if you hate it, that means you have reacted to it. You have felt it somewhere. So I think that is where the collaboration happens. The more you collaborate, the more you talk with the director and the writer, you get to build that strength of, the foundations become very strong of what you're trying to say. It's just not hawa mein kuch bol diya, kaisa bhi kuch bola and all of that. The foundations become very strong, and the stronger the foundations are, I think you get more convinced as technicians working in the film that we are making this story and talking about these certain people. And the convinced you are, the conviction shows on screen.
Add to that as a director.
I think we've pretty much covered from both sides, but no, I think the crux of it all here is that filmmaking is an extremely collaborative experience, and it's layer upon layer of each discipline of cinema coming together, process by process, and kind of just sitting together to form that one final image that we all then put out to the audience to see. And the more synchronized that is, the better the final product.
I was going to say exactly the same thing. I think I would just like to say, as an editor, I feel that so many people's work is, in front of you. It's on the table in front of you, and it becomes your job to make sure that they all look good. You have to make sure that everyone's best is out there for the audience to see. So yeah, I think it's that. It's a bit by bit. It's collaborative, and I think if everyone's interested in the same things for a movie, then I think we should be okay.
I just want to say thanks to all the filmmakers over here for making me feel a bit better and for making me understand that mind is just the base on which the painting will be made.
No, absolutely. As a writer, when I don't direct, but for me to hand over that to the director and then start building on it. So till that moment, I feel it's mine. The moment it's given, the moment the script is made or the copy is given, after that it's everyone else's but yours. My director reads it, I think, more times, 100 times, 80 times, much more than what I do. And people have to own it. Your director has to own your work as if he has written it. Your costume designer has to take the script and make it theirs as if they had imagined these people. Of course, in the script it's mentioned what Pico will wear, what Dan will wear, whatever, what kind of house they're living in. But unless and until every department doesn't make it their own, it'll never become everybody else's. It'll always remain a laptop script. Never will it belong to the audience.
And while writing, I think it started with a certain actor in mind, a cast in mind. And when that doesn't happen, you struggle with breaking away from that and going back to the drawing board. I don't know how many of you will not have the actor who wanted on board, but just a general question. Would you struggle with the fact that I've written this story with a actor or actress in mind? What happens then?
Never happened that way.
I don't think that you can write with an actor. I mean, at least I have. I don't know.
Yeah.
You can't say, oh, I'm writing this for this particular actor, and and then go and ask whether they'll do it.
Right.
I don't think it works like that. What you get invested in are the characters, and then if particular actor is right for it, then you approach them. It's more like
You
that.
don't see as an actor fitting into the character you're writing. While in the process of writing, I'm not saying the onset is this point.
Of course, while you're jabbing, you might say, somebody like Amitabh Bachchan.
Yes.
It's more.
It
sort of
helps you to write sometimes. But like for example, Vicky Rona, Chadha's character, Dr. Chadha's character, we did think of late Ompuri, and he outrightly refused it. He said, "Ye kya hai?" And we said, "Oh God, it's that bad, is it?" In your mind, because through the writing process, I was imagining this Punjabi, and his humor is very different from what Anuji eventually brought on screen. But of course, it was a great choice. I mean, when Anu Kapoor agreed to do it, and it was, and Ayushmann definitely not was the first choice, because he hadn't done any film before that, and all the established actors, they really refused. So you do think that, have you written, such a bad stuff that nobody really wants to be part of it. But again, on the hindsight, whatever happened eventually happened for betterment of the film. And Anu Kapoor's humor, I would have not thought. It was still more in, how Ompri would have done his humor. But Anuji's presence just made it all so, the energy in the film was completely different then. So sometimes, that change of actor actually is for it just works for the film. But like Rana's role in Irfan's character, Rana, that was written for him. I did think that, if somebody has to do it, it would be someone like Irfan. And so yeah.
I think I've no, that's a myth. No, so I've had both sides of the experiences. For me, because I'll also be directing the film, so once your basic character starts taking shape, you've gone like in 20 pages into your script, you start seeing the house, you start seeing the faces, you start visualizing your script as you're writing it, and then when there is, say, one face that keeps coming back to you, then you know that, okay, you're not writing for them, but it's that this is being written and I would like to go to them with this. You don't automatically start putting their mannerisms into your character. That doesn't happen. But you do know that you have an end goal to go to after the script is done. It happened on Razi with Alia. I mean, as soon as I heard the story, 19-year-old Kashmiri girl put through this, I was like, if this is not Alia Bhatt, I don't know if I'll make the movie. Fortunately for me, she agreed to do it. It doesn't always happen that an actor will agree to do your film. And then you have to look for alternatives, and sometimes those alternatives can turn better than your original choice, and sometimes it can be a compromise. There is no rule in filmmaking. It's like a real free-for-all. You have to just put yourself out there and keep finding solutions on the fly for everything, from writing to casting to budgeting to shooting to executing to editing to post. It's as much creativity and as much problem solving, finding solutions or at the spur of the moment, and that's an intrinsic part of the filmmaking process.
It's really easy for all of you to see a character which you've written about finally take shape and form. When you see it actually in flesh and blood. Even for you, Modhura, you see it through your lens, you heard about it, you read about it, you discussed it, you finally see it in front of the camera through your lens. How exciting is it?
It's very exciting, yes. Because the thing, I think what happens is, when you're shooting a film, even all the characters and all the people, they go through a certain change. I think whenever you're shooting also, it's not the same thing. It's not always, I think, the 101% that you have written and visualized. While you start shooting, there might be just a little bit of change in the actors, and the actors bring about their own thing also. They add on to the script and they add on to the characters, and it changes. So you have seen literally while you're shooting, the character literally grow in front of you. It slowly starts taking flesh and shape and color and has a nose and an ear and a mouth and all of that. So the process is a lot of fun. So when you finally see it on screen, it's an amazing experience actually to see that, oh, so we have imagined that person is certain, especially because I kind of move out of that whole post-production process after shoot and I come back directly at color correction when everything is almost in place. It's like different things, oh, it's looking like this. Oh, so this guy has this kind of a music at the back. So it's like seeing your own movie for the first time and you slowly realize that, oh, you have done a very good job or you have done a very bad job. But that is, I think, when it hits you and also you get to reconnect and re-see the characters, you have this retrospect of sorts. Because you have left the process and then you are coming back after months of everything being put into place and order and everything. And then you finally sit, and I think that is the first time you actually understand and see your character that you have been shooting in totality. Because previous to that, you only see the fragments of it, and it's like non-linear, right? So you see the struggles before and how they have gone through the struggles later and their happy moments in the between. So it's also, I think, sometimes it's very difficult for people to actually gauge how the character has moved through the whole film process. And then finally when you see it at the end, that is, I think, when you finally, you're taking a step back and you're looking at it and you kind of realize, oh, okay, so this is, and for me, a lot of time it happens that I realize how the character has finally become when I see it, when I finally see it on a color correction, something on the side. Because when you edit a certain character graph, when you put music on it, when there is a BGM added to it, the whole size of that character changes. You see it in a certain way on a screen, and then after it, the whole additions of it, it changes the dimensions and the size and the whole personality of a character. And when you see it, kind of almost you realize sometimes that, oh, it was supposed to be like this. So he has turned out to be, or she has turned out to be like this. It's an amazing experience. But most of the time I'm working in independent films, so हम लोग को actor मिल जाता है, वही बहुत बड़ी बात होता है. हम लोग को actor मिलते नहीं है, so we like just go to friends and we just ask के भाई करेगा तू, and then if he's free and he's kind enough, we'll be like come. And if not, then there's nobody's there, so after a point you see the production designer only acting and then coming back and putting the kettle in the place. So independent filmmakers work like this.
It's fascinating to see the film when it's finally done. You're just like, oh my god, like really, did this happen? It's really, it's quite sad. I mean, for me, I think I took last enjoyed the film on the adult table. For me, seeing it grown up on the big screen is always a bit of a shock. But yeah, it's almost a child. I have a completely childlike response to it, and I get amazed and intimidated. So yeah.
It doesn't even happen while you're shooting, and you see a character like this, sometimes changes, evolves. Do you ever want to go back and change something with the character, or some characteristic about the character?
I can't say that I have, because I mean, fortunately for me, the way it's happened is that it's always gotten better. Like for example, and I'll tell you, this character will stay with me forever, is Gajraj Rao in Talwar. He was not written the way, I mean the dialogue and all of that was there, but the nuances and the body language and the small improvisations that he did, those are textures that you can't possibly think of when you're putting it on paper. And even if you do think of them, there's no way that you can very clearly denote it on paper. It's that final step which happens between writing and performance which an actor brings, and it's magical. Yeah, a small thing like Irfan sir playing with the mobile phone, his character on Talwar, it's written in the script. But how he takes it and extends it is that when he's questioning the supposedly accused father, he's never making eye contact. Whether he's looking at the phone or not, he's not making eye contact with that person he's supposed to be interrogating. Now, that is an actor's interpretation and it's magical. So I've been blessed to have those, those improvisations and those things which happen on set, and yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree what she's saying, magical. It's really like, जादूगर जो होता है ना, actors are like that. वो आके ऐसे जान फूंक देते हैं, प्राण आ जाता है उस चीज में जो लिखा है. What you think is the character, the nuances, everything. These are all words. But unless and until they breathe in that oxygen into it, that prana into the written word, it can never turn out to be, it cannot affect you that much the way it does. Like for example, that scene in Piku, what she's talking about improvisation, where the knife comes out of the car. Now, Bhaskar and Rana, they go on and on arguing and debating about it, and Deepika was slightly lost because Hindi is not her first language, right? So to contribute into that chaos, if it's not written already, what do you do? What do you do to add more to the chaos without really having a dialogue there? So she decided to just throw the knife. Now the moment she throws the knife, these two guys, these two actors, suddenly, and it was all game happening on the set. Like for them, it was like, oh, it was not there, but now that it has happened, what do we do? How do you react to it? So, that magic can happen only on the set. And only when actors, they wear that character so deeply, or they get so involved into that, the written piece, that they can take it forward. And they must, there are times when you wonder that, was it really written? Sometimes, even if they're saying exactly what you've written, but you go back and say, oh shit, it was written, but the way he has said it or she has said it, and you're crying as the scene is still being enacted. Forget, watching it on the screen. Sometimes on the monitor, you just feel that, oh, they just made it so much of their own. They have to steal it away from you. They have to steal it from the director, from the writer, from whoever. Only then it makes sense.
Sometimes what happens is that it could be a complete revelation to all of you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like she said, how the eye can, travel, and it may just change the pause where you think is the pause, but that other pause can just add so much more value, or the silence. You think that what happened? Why is she not saying the line? But the character just that person could not say the line.
I actually have a very nice anecdote about this pause in a dialogue. So in Razi, post-interval, when you know that she's run over Abdul and she wakes up from her sleep, and then Vicky is telling her that, मैं वो भाई है, वो ठीक है, and she realizes, shit, Abdul's not dead. And her question is, Abdul, वो ठीक है, na? Now, if you change the pausing, Abdul, वो ठीक है ना, is different from Abdul, वो ठीक है ना? So there is concern versus guilt. A pause can change that, and so that's an actor's interpretation. Yeah. It's.
What happened to you was Sumedha, like while you're writing a story, the shape and form of the character sometimes changes, evolves beyond what you thought it would.
So I'm writing a series. The characters are not going away. There is no stop, pause, and start again. But new characters do run away with the book. So I am writing the third in the series right now, and a couple of characters have run away with me. And I had no intention of giving them so much prominence, but they seem to have become the protagonists for this particular book. So that happens, I think, organically. That happens suddenly. And I really can't say why. I think it's part of the creative process. It's something which comes from inside you. But perhaps there is more control that an author exercises, because as you said, filmmaking is collaborative. There are so many other people who are doing so many things. The author is God, as far as the book is concerned. But perhaps the director can't be that much of a god. I don't know. I will have to refer to the directors because you do.
I think your own experience is going to convince you finally. I mean, I just pray it's a good one. Yeah.
No, so yes, characters develop on their own. It's part of the creative process, and they do take on shades while writing, which you had not thought of in the beginning while plotting.
We're talking about thrillers. It's finding its space in our cinema again. So writing thriller, Meghna, you viewed a thriller. Is it a different ballgame? And your thriller was open-ended. So how is that zone? Because leaving it out there, it's tricky, right? Leaving the audience decide what they want to think of the film at the end. So how tricky is that?
Okay, so I think thrillers have been appreciated and made in Hindi movies forever. Actually, it's not exactly new. I mean, the 60s, 70s, some wonderful thrillers, Vijayan, they've all made wonderful movies. But coming back to the ambiguous ending of Andhadhun, we wanted it to be open-ended. The effort was not to go one way or the other. We used to debate amongst ourselves, which is your end, and we refused to tell. I don't know, it could be this or it could be that. The studio we were working with was terrified because they thought the divisive ending will divide people's opinion. People are going to hate it. They don't like it when you don't tell them what happened in the end. We were very fortunate that they liked it very much. And it became a conversation thing at the end of the film to say, "Acha tha ki nahi tha." But that was the effort. And I think it's, on some level, we worked towards it, and on some level, sort of the audience just took it away and made it their own. It's quite amazing.
So you were always sure you wanted to make it open-ended. It wasn't like...
Very sure. We were very sure that we didn't want to have, the blind guy takes revenge. We didn't want that. We didn't want, the blind guy gets his eyes back. Any one thing was making it quite cliche, not cliche, but what else? What do you expect? So this kind of, it totally depends on you what you think the end is. So yeah.
Salman was different in that sense. It was real subjects, while his view, the filter was different as to whether you should leave it that way or take a stance.
I don't think Talwar having an end was a matter of choice because we weren't there. When the investigative agencies don't have an answer as to what transpired that night, there is no way we would be putting ourselves in that position and saying, hey, you know what, actually this is what happened that. There's no way it would have been done. In fact, like I said, the duplicity of that whole incident is what actually led to the treatment of the screenplay, that we have to show both sides of the story. We have to show the police's investigation, we have to show the first CBI team's investigation, and then of course Vishal sir added that masterstroke of giving it that Rashomon treatment where you're looking at the same thing from two different perspectives. But there is no way Talwar could have had a conclusive ending. No way.
You spoke about how we take inspiration from women of the past. Could you elaborate on that? I mean, your book writing is also a bit about that.
Yes. So this is a subject on which I can speak for hours, but I won't, don't worry. But as I said, my inspiration comes from the past. It is an exploration not of anyone else, but of myself. Because I am the product of a lot that has gone before. So that's how it started. And what I want to see is, are there some parallels between somebody who lived 2,500 years ago and me? So, Meghna, interestingly, my book is also about a spy. The protagonist is a spy in the pay of Chanakya. And she is a part of the group, the team which helps Chandragupta Maurya to extend his empire. So the protagonist is a spy, she's a woman, she has all the aspects of life that I'm looking at are also the ones she lives at. So to me, the fascinating thing is to find out what's common between me and her. who's also living life, doing some work, following a profession, a difficult one, who has a personal life, who has to deal with colleagues, who has to deal with bosses. I'm putting it all in modern terms. So she has to deal with colleagues, bosses, people, romances, relationships, etc. So do all of us. So the important thing for me, interesting thing, is to see the parallels, and they absolutely fascinate me. Because I've come to the conclusion that, well, we remain the same. Women remain the same, and we do deal with the same things. We do look for solutions to the same problems, and perhaps in very similar ways. Given that I'm talking about the same country and the same society a few thousand years ago, so we do look at solutions, and we do look at things in a surprisingly and strikingly similar manner. So many years later, the continuity and the parallels are absolutely amazing.
I think you've written a strong, interesting women characters. We would add to it.
The desire to have a voice, I'm sure has been there always. The good part of our times is that lot many more people are finding that voice, are allowed that voice. I hate that word that they're being allowed, but that is a reality. In my mother's time, was she allowed this absolute freedom of speech in her bedroom? Yes. Venting out to her friends? Yes. But on the dining table when everybody else was speaking, was she allowed? No. There was a very Russian emotional alliance. Like you don't laugh loudly, you don't suddenly start crying if something has affected you so badly. You control your tears, you do your job, you ensure that everybody has eaten the plates and all that, and then you go back in your room and shed a few tears if you have the time, or you leave it for another day, and it just stays within you. So it's not today we have Twitter to went on, we do it on Facebook, we WhatsApp. There's immediate, expression. So I think the beauty of our times is that it's allowing that, and it's letting you that. And what I write, I ensure that there's no hint of regression in those families. If Syed was at home with Piku, that night, the morning when Bhaskar falls ill, and he comes out of the bedroom, so be it. So what if she and Syed are not married and they're just colleagues, and it's just a physical need, as she puts it. So that's the truth of this woman, and I would like to say it there without shying away. If I see that in this audience, with my audience agree and all, I'll never do justice to the woman that she is. And my and it's, I feel it's my responsibility to do justice to the characters, to ensure that everyone gets their fair share of truth. And women definitely, I will never have any man speaking badly to her. I will not allow. And that I'm very clear. Unless it comes to a point that it's needed for a certain scene, but then again, it's not about being feminist, it's not about writing strong women character. I just feel that they are. There's nothing to say that suddenly out of the blue, today characters have become strong. They were always there. There was Indira Gandhi, there was Rani Lakshmibai, there was they've been always. It's just that we didn't know.
Can I just add a little bit to that? Because my next book is exactly on this subject. It's going to be a book on the women of ancient India, who are some of the women, like some of the women you're speaking of, and there are many who we don't know about. And it's only because of that we think that there were no voices, or that there was something which was missing. There were many women with many voices, whether in the Rigveda and Rishi, or as queens, or as warriors. Yes. So yes, they've always been there. We just need to listen to them perhaps a little more.
I would like to say something. it's a book I've read in childhood, Alice in Wonderland, and Lewis Carroll says, one girl is worth 20 boys. I don't think it's really about, and I'm not being sexist here, I'm just saying that I think that the average woman is really quite strong. I think the average woman has to negotiate a lot of things in her life, which makes her tough. I think in many ways, tough and emotional and caregiving and all these things that come together. Coming back to the woman characters that I've worked in the films with, they've all been, I think, no matter what they do, whether they do horrible things or not, there is a basic dignity to their choices, which for me is very important. There's no random sort of using the fact that you're a woman, for example. Those are the important things. I think that when you're writing or when you're choosing a character, you say, "Acha, aisa to nahi karegi." There's dignity to them. Even Tabu and Angadun, devoid of dignity, that character would be very difficult to take actually. So.